Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone's having a great start to your day. I am here with my main man, BigBeat. How are you doing today, Steve?
I'm good, Hondo. How are you, man? I'll tell you, the news is really breaking fast. With obviously all of the Trump appointments, with tariff news, and of course this morning we saw the numbers coming out. We'll talk about it in a little bit from the trade imbalance. But look, the one thing I think we need to talk about this morning is earnings are pretty good. We've seen some tech earnings pretty good. So
Yeah, ASML coming up pretty strong here, getting
yeah.
some love to chips. I got to ask you, you and I were discussing it before, a little surprised by this sell-off personally in NVIDIA. What about yourself?
Not scared. As I always say, look, I saw where Morgan Stanley lowered. Silk said it's overweight. Keep buying it, but they lowered the price target. All right, kind of silly to me. Trying to save face. The truth of the matter is, all of this stuff, whether it's DeepSeek or whether it's ChatGPT or DALL-E or Wally or all the kind of AIs, they all need one thing: hardware. And I heard that in Davos quite a bit. One of the things that we talked about last week, Howard, you and I talked about was, software for the first time in history, I think, at least in my lifetime, software has actually caught up.
It's ahead. You're right. You're exactly right.
Hardware is the thing that hasn't caught up, right? And NVIDIA is producing chips as fast as they can produce them, and they need to upgrade them. And I just saw where the new 5090 RTXs with the NVIDIA's new chips.
I told you they're open. They're available, buddy.
Are already sold out.
Blackwell. They're sold out already. You didn't get us any yet.
You can't even get one. I wanted to get one. And it was so bad that the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, told people, hey, be careful because it's cold outside. You don't have to line up. There's enough for you. No, there's not enough for you. They're already sold out. So that is,
and we said it yesterday, nothing with DeepSeek changed the fact that NVIDIA can't fill their current orders, never mind what future orders are going to be there.
And now we know it's stolen. Now we know that.
Yeah. And I want to pat myself on the back because what's moved these chips to the state where we're at, where it's coming close at least, is Bitcoin mining, right? ASICs. Yeah. What NVIDIA did and what really took them to that next level, let's face it, was the creation of their ASICs division and making chips for specific needs. And that's what AI has, and that's what Blackwell is. So that's great. It's looking like a mixed bag here. Futures, tech, and a little bit of earnings has QQQ slightly up.
Let's be honest. The whole day is about one thing and one thing only: what the Fed does later today. Yeah. That's it. I mean, the rest of the market is quiet. These are days I don't trade until, and remember, I believe in the day and a half rule. So it's whatever the Fed does, and whatever happens, market the first move. It's day and a half rule. But I just posted on our Twitter feed, our X.com feed, the question: what is the Fed going to do? Is it going to raise, lower, or hold steady the rates? And it's like 60% hold steady, whereas you saw it on the Fed Watch tool that's like 100% that they're going to hold. I think they're going to hold. They're concerned about what Trump wants, but they're not beholden to him. I think he's going to get pissed off if they don't start lowering rates. And I think he's going to really I think you'll hear him jawbone today if you don't see that. If you don't see a lowering of rates, he's going to be upset and blame the Fed. Okay.
I was going to ask you that because I think so too. And part of the reason I think he will is because he's got till March till the next one, right? They don't meet in February.
Right.
So it gives him a little bit more time. They probably will be ready to lower at that point, even without that sort of mandate. But it makes him look like, again, they bowed to my demands and they did what I asked. So I do think I see that also as the case.
What have we been talking about? Well, these rates lowering and we talked about one thing, and this happened this morning. We talked about mergers and acquisitions, and all of a sudden, what happened this morning? Frontier Airlines has re-engaged with Spirit Airlines, saying we'll take over the routes, we'll take over the bankruptcy. It's already starting, and we talked about this for 3 months. We've said, look, as soon as this happens, this is going to happen, mergers and acquisitions, and we're already seeing it. So Trump,
I think this will get fast tracked too, again, just so he can point a finger at Biden and say, you didn't do this right.
You screwed up, Joe. And I agree with him. I
was railing about that at the time. I said, this one makes absolutely zero sense. Look at the people who've lost their jobs, people, who lost their money. You can't, anybody who owned that stock the day it went bankrupt, they're done. It doesn't, even if this comes back, they don't get
Agreed.
their money back. It doesn't
Agreed.
work that way, unfortunately.
Agreed.
The institutional people will get their money back. So yeah, I mean, that's, it's good to see that that's back up. We got to talk a little bit about the economic data that just came in. U.S. advanced goods trade balance has dropped to lows we haven't seen since December of 2022. I was a little surprised by that number, but do you think this has to do already with the threat of tariffs?
Nope. Well, yes, in a way, yes. Obviously, the threat of tariffs, and I think you're seeing some countries pulling back a bit. But I also think that it's also based on the U.S. dollar being so high right now, and that's causing problems. So there is a confluence of energy here that's really hurting the bottom line here, and but Department of Government Efficiency, or whatever that Elon's calling it, is now saving $1 billion a day right now. And he says he wants even more than that, which I love. That's $365 billion we're saving. That's not even a drop in the bucket, right?
It doesn't affect the fees that are behind our deficit.
Correct. It's not, we spend more than that in a minute, right? So what I want to see is more of that, right? And if we can see a little bit more of that and we're moving in the right direction, then I think you'll see other countries doing the same thing and saying, okay, look, the fiscal house of the United States is trying to get back into order. Great. The dollar will start to come down. Great. Let's get back into buying U.S. products like manufacturing. And if Trump is right and he wants to be the manufacturing country again, which I love, then I think you're going to see that trade imbalance get back to normal, maybe even swing the way that he did during the Clinton administration, where we had a trade balance to the positive side. We had a surplus. So we could very well see that in probably the summertime.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Obviously, that would get the markets moving in the right direction. A couple of things I do want to point out. We don't talk too much on the politics side here, but I've seen a lot of talk about eggs all over my social media feed. Avian flu was here before the new president, and it is something, unfortunately, that we're going to be dealing with in the U.S. for a long time. So you're going to see extreme jumps in egg prices. There's nothing you can do. I live in that area. I talk to my neighbors who are farmers all the time. Unfortunately, some of them here, even the neighbor that I buy my eggs from, had to destroy his flock due to it. It's gotten to the point where they don't even allow the electric company to go do the meters here right now. And the gas companies, they're doing it off of estimates because they don't want to track it from the farm to farm. So I did want to point that out because of it. Hey, Europe, we talk about all of the angst there, but man, I was looking at the Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund. They're not doing too bad in the last year, huh?
They never do bad. I mean, when you have oil and they do the right thing, many years ago, they started to go electric, and every car and vehicle in Norway is now electric, and they went wind and geothermal, hydro, all the different ways, and now they're completely electric. And guess what? They'll just sell their oil. They don't need it. So guess what? It's free money for them. So of course,
one of my bigger takeaways there is they made it clear that 70% of their money is in stocks and equities, and that majority of that was in U.S. based stocks and equities that were up 13% for them for the year. So again, we've talked about this with Mr. Flanagan and others. Hey, Ron, good to see you this morning. Yeah, that is what they're doing. So I was surprised by that. They talked specifically about their stakes in Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Amazon. So and made it clear they were still holding big positions in those companies. So again, that's the opposite of what we've seen across the rest of Europe. We do have the ECB tomorrow. Forecasts are that they are going to cut on their interest rates tomorrow.
We've been talking about that forever, Howard. I mean, there's time for them. One of the things that she said constantly was saying was, "We're not behind the curve. We're not behind the curve." Well, Christine, you were behind the curve, and now you're feeling that pain, and now you're going to have to do it, and now you're going to cut and say, "Oh, we did the right numbers and the right amount." Well, Germany's in a recession. It's a little late.
I have Germany's numbers going across the screen right now. and it's not good. They contracted by 0.2% in 2024, following a 0.3 decline in 2023. And Mr. Flanagan wanted to point out that Norway only has a population of 5.4 million. So sort of like the Indian reservations in some of the parts of the U.S., they should just split that up and call it a day.
I mean, I was just in Tokyo with 34 million. I get it. But somebody has to lead, right? Some countries have to lead. And in Europe, there needed to be a leader. You've got Mario Draghi just put out a paper about a week and a half ago about the failures of the ECB. And here we are. But you know what? I always say, Howard, look, I'm looking for a deal. When I'm investing, I'm looking for a deal. And, there's some deals being made there in Europe. I want to buy low and sell high. I know it's hard to understand sometimes when people go, oh, Bitcoin's only at 3,000. Why am I buying at 3,000? Oh, it's 100,000 now, right? Why am I buying Germany when it's really low? Well, it's because it's low, right? It's not going to be low forever.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about that with Mr. Flanagan. He's, looking at Japan. I did see earnings hit for SMFG this morning. Didn't really move the needle much. But I think part of that is just that no one knows. I didn't know that they had an ability to invest on the U.S. stock market in those. I couldn't even find information after their earnings on CNBC, Market Watch. All my subscriptions were worthless this morning. None of them had any info there for me. But that is an area that I am definitely looking at here. Overnight crypto held up, Steve, right around 102. We've seen the volatility drop off, liquidations drop off. So good to see that. Maybe we get a little bit of breathing room here going into, as you said, FOMC, which will be the talk of the day, Fed speak. I will say, if you want to see a WWE type moment, if he walks out and says there's a cut today, it's just watch out above. Here come all of the money.
But now we're seeing more states and more countries and in our country saying we're going to have a fund of crypto, especially Bitcoin, these reserve funds. I'm sorry. You just saw what Norway does with their funds, sovereign funds. So if any of these funds start putting money into Bitcoin, Bitcoin is not going to be 100,000. It's going to be 1 million, right?
Yeah, it is insane if they actually do step in, even in a small way. The areas, the countries, the states that are talking about doing this,
right,
even small way. I put on Twitter yesterday, Cynthia Lummis's proposals for 200,000 Bitcoin a year for 5 years. I pointed out that would be, $20 billion. And my question was, in 5 years, how much Bitcoin would actually that 20 billion buy? I said about 2,000.
Well, if you look at it,
not 200,000, but 2,000.
So if Elon's saving $1 billion, a day, it could happen in less than a month.
Yeah, put it in.
So it can happen.
Hey, Steve, speaking of Elon, man, I don't know if you saw it, but Starlink is partnering with T-Mobile to put into iPhones the ability for you to use Starlink directly. What do you think about that? I was thinking about the runoff from that is huge.
Yeah, I think that's what I said yesterday, that this is, if people were asking me, what is the biggest technological advancement? And I'm going to tell you, it is Elon Musk with Starlink. The amount of money, the ecosystem around the internet itself is extraordinary. Think of it like Spectrum and AT&T and Verizon, right? If I can go on a cruise, no longer have to pay for internet because I got it on my phone, Royal Caribbean loses money. That's a margin there. If I no longer have to pay AT&T money because I got Starlink in my phone, AT&T loses, right? So I don't see AT&T and Verizon moving too quickly. Why is T-Mobile doing it? Because T-Mobile is on the back end. They use the lines from both AT&T and Verizon to switch, right? And so Starlink could be the biggest winner here 5 years from now. Think about it. No matter where you are in the world, you just use your phone. You don't have to worry anymore. You don't have to have
hotspots. You and I were talking about it, like, RCL, hotels. First thing I do is, if I don't have free Wi-Fi because of my status, is to buy the Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Now you wouldn't do that. You'd be using your phone for a hotspot wherever you are, to the point where, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. He posted there was, Air Force planes yesterday flying at more than Mach 1, filming each other on their iPhone and sending it across Starlink.
I mean, it reminds me of Top Gun inverting, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's just crazy.
Now you can actually take the picture. You don't just have to flip them the bird.
You could actually, on your cell phone, your camera phone. Look, that tells you everything right there, right? That the speed of and hardware is now catching up. We've just talked about that. Look, if that's the case, Tesla is undervalued. I mean, very undervalued, because everybody on the planet, now you're thinking about Africa. You're thinking about places that are underserved for cell phones and mobile reach. You can be in the middle of the ocean now. You think about it from the perspective of where you live. You don't have to worry about anything else now. You can live in the mountains. You can live right off the grid completely now and still be connected. So this raises another specter of where a person can live, how a person lives, and gosh, you can
they make money, how they can work and remotely, and like you said, productivity and the ability to do that is just amazing. Sticking at a sort of macro level here in the U.S. also, did you see Trump administration offering federal employees buyouts? Either come back to the office or get a new job. I think I would take it. You're getting paid till September 30th. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, but remember, you got a lot of people to hear that this is their lifestyle, right? I mean, they've been living that.
We all know how.
Right.
And we lived with the Beltway bandits forever.
And you think about it, they also have their tips, which if you don't know, is Treasury protected. They're all investing in the big government fund as well, so that they can't just leave. There's going to be some things there as well, so no one's going to just take this buyout and run. But there could be some that are newly.
Estimates were about 6%.
That's about right. I would say probably maybe even higher than that. We could
probably use a 6 to 7% reduction in the federal workforce pretty easily without it affecting anything.
Well, they're getting rid of the first level is DEI people. They're gone.
Yeah,
and the second level.
Well, inspector generals, anyone who actually oversees or is a watchdog for anything, they're gone.
Look, I believe in the OIG offices, the Office of the Inspector Generals. There's a reason why they're in place, and you start removing those. It's like putting the wolf in the hen house. I don't like that so much.
Yeah, that one worries me too. I'm not gonna lie. Getting back to the markets a little bit, Steve, I also noticed the earnings this morning. Brinker has some great earnings this morning. I talked about them yesterday. They're one of the best in class. They really are. They don't overwhelm you with their product line, the Olive Gardens, the Chili's of the world, but they put out a steady product that seems to draw people in. And they really saw a nice move here. Now up 13%.
Because they're leaving McDonald's, they're leaving Wendy's, they're leaving all of these fast food because people are on the Ozempic, Zepbound, and they're moving to more quality. We talked about this several times. They're moving to a little bit more of a quality food with less portions. I agree with this. And that's why they're going to these in this case, I think Olive Garden we talked about this.
Chili's is the one that really And what I noticed is, you know what they did really well, in my personal opinion, is they made it the same price to get a burger, fries, and a Coke that it was at McDonald's, but you get a better product. You can watch TV, you can watch your sports game, and if you want to have a beer with it, you can have a beer with it. But they made it that it was actually cheaper, and they're getting a lot of that money. I mean, their same sales restaurant at Chili grew 31.4%.
That's crazy.
That's a big number. You don't see that in restaurants,
right? And now I will say that you also saw where Kevin, the CEO there, also said that he had operation. He made it a lot, and I'll tell you, whenever my wife and I go out to eat at Chili's, that we've seen that the waiters, the people that are there, I'm being said hello to when I come in, as opposed to, hey, where you want to sit, sit wherever you want to sit.
Yeah.
There's a culture change too as well, and we're seeing that in a lot of places. If you're seeing a much better, more fun culture at a place, people want to see that. People want to be a part of that, right? And I like that.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. People want to go where they felt like they're welcome, and you make them part of your family. And those are the restaurants that succeed. And I do think he's done a good job with that culture change, because that wasn't what you always saw in those restaurants. But I thought that was good. The other one that surprised me a little bit was Starbucks. You know, and they had less than stellar, you know, reporting, and up about 3% though. So I was a little surprised by that. In fact, their same store sales were pretty bad, down about 4%.
But I will tell you this much, being in Tokyo, I think their international sales are up, because I was in Tokyo at the zoo and where the museum is there, and I can tell you there was a line to get into Starbucks. I just wanted a hot chocolate, and wow, it was crazy.
Well, that's good to see. Yeah, you know, it's a tough one for me, because number one, you know, I think what they do better than anybody, and what probably helps them, is that coffee prices continue to skyrocket, but they have the largest reserve of coffee beans that kind of insulates them from that. You know, I think that was part of the takeaway I heard from the CEO. The other part I think that gets people going right now, and because we saw it with all of the earnings, they said we're stopping to do as many promotions. We're not giving the crap away anymore. You know, and I think you've seen that in a few of the different earnings reports, where that's, you know, switch to premiumization is not a bad thing. Airlines was the big one that I saw it in, that, again, that, you know, that move to premiumization had definitely done it. We're about 10 minutes away from open, Steve. What are you thinking today? I think we're in hold position till FOMC. I think we do a little bit of up and down, nothing too big anyway. And then
the word of the street is still AI. I mean, yesterday you heard about it from DeepSeek. Guess what you heard about this morning from Alibaba, BABA, now talking about how they've got a better AI. I mean, my goodness gracious, it's like I have a better swimsuit. I don't know. At some point, you got to say, okay, we get it. The whole world is into AI, and I'm looking forward to all of this. But I said this yesterday. It's like the beginning of the turn of the century. How many car companies can make more AI, right? So here we are, Alibaba and DeepSeek and OpenAI. I think the world of AI is going to get really wild very fast, and it's still hardware. So it's still going to be NVIDIA, still going to be AMD. These companies are the only ones who are making the actual hardware for it. So I think that's the key today for me.
Yeah, you just hit a key point that I would say, and what I was just about to say, is what we saw in the dot-com bubble, what we've seen, you know, in all of these type of things, the crypto world, all this, is what happens is eventually the companies that are all of these different AIs, whether it be Babas or DeepSeeks or whatever, eventually there will be winners and losers there. And we don't know who they are yet. And anyone who tells you they do is wrong, because we don't know, the same way that we thought,
and if these rates come down, you're going to see mergers and acquisitions.
Right. And what you're going to see, though, is hardware isn't going to have a loser.
No.
Everybody needs that hardware, because they all do different things. You know, ARM makes the smaller components that go into the, you know, the servers in your machine, and they don't do the big computing that the AI does. And Qualcomm makes the chips that go more into your phones and IoT devices, and they all have their little niches in there. But to my takeaway is still that hardware is where I want to be right now, because I don't know.
That's a very good point, Howard. If you're talking about Starlink being in T-Mobile, Qualcomm is going to be huge, because you're going to need that, right?
Yeah, you know, and Ron Williams did point out that, you know, the reason he bought Starlink, you know, through the private market bought SpaceX was for that. And I wanted to point out there, will be interesting to see what that does over the next few days. If you saw Twitter is looking, or X is looking to pay off some of their debt by selling some of it to, you know, some of the big institutions out there.
Of course
and they're adding a sweetener, is that they're offering up parts of their stock to SpaceX to those buyers. So you would get a piece of SpaceX. And what they're trying to do is basically delete the premium, or that they would have to pay to otherwise get you to take that debt. So what do you think about that? I didn't know if I've ever seen that in that type of form.
Oh, you didn't? You haven't seen it from the form of a little company called MicroStrategy selling their own stock off to buy the things. I mean, it's what people are doing, right? When the stocks.
Well, no, I meant more including the you know, the non-private company stock option within the actual debt.
It's better than doing it through a SPAC, I guess.
Through money, it's better than just paying. He's like, hey, listen, you know, I already own enough of SpaceX. Right. So, you know, the money that X put in to help fund when I needed funding, they don't need that piece.
They'll he who controls the media controls the world, right? And so he's controlling the Twitter sphere, and he's controlling the car, and he's controlling to be able to talk on the phone soon around the world. So Elon Musk might not just be the richest man by $500 billion, but could be in the trillions soon. So yeah,
do have a ton of earnings on tap today, but the three big boys come after earnings today. Microsoft's, Starbucks already did it, and Tesla. So we do have those today to keep an eye on.
Oh, I think Tesla beats big. If you're asking me, I think Tesla beats big.
That was where I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the stock's been getting beat up. He seems to, whenever the stock seems to get beat up a little bit, he pulls, something out. So it will be an interesting thing to watch. I was going to say, out of the ones going, if I was going to make a YOLO bet on some, this week options, it would probably be Tesla to the upside here.
We're hearing reports now that Mexico's President Sheinbaum now says she does not think that the U.S. will impose tariffs on February the 1st.
Well, good. Hopefully they're negotiating. And as we've talked about, it's just rhetoric back and forth. And we kind of can look there.
We're seeing a little bit of a slippage here in the peso right now. Dollar peso is now 20.56 now. So dollar is still strong against it, but seeing a little bit of slippage. You're also seeing slippage on the dollar yen and dollar CAD loonie here as well. So we need to see the dollar come down a little bit. 108.17 is just too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna, and either is Mr. Flanagan. Based on our discussions this week, he is calling. He was saying buy that dip that the other day. We'll see what he thinks it could blow down to, but dollar king is still the main talk out there. And like you said, we see it in even the Norway's sovereign fund talking about where they're putting their money. It's in the U.S. What we'll find out and talk more about today with him is, as this divergence in rates starts to develop between Japan, between, the Eurozone and the U.S., do we start to see opportunities arrive there, from that change in between those?
Yeah. We're seeing T-Mobile now about 7% here in the early market. I think T-Mobile has a big winner on their
I think that news is going to push them today for sure.
I would watch the 0 DTEs on TMUS this morning. Totally watch that.
Seeing some of our biggest pre-market losers today so far are Lennox, Dahana Corporation, Package Corp of America, and General Dynamics seem to be the big losers. I know General Dynamics was one that had earnings. So we'll see what they're saying there. They actually had an earnings beat.
Hey, but if the world's getting nicer and people want to, play nice to each other, then we don't need General Dynamics as much, right? I just saw a meme that came out a few days ago about who has the biggest air forces in the world, and guess what? It's the Navy, the Air Force. It's 5 of the top 10 is the United States, right? If we cut back a little bit on that and we raise the actual Army itself on spending there, then General Dynamics is going to hurt a bit.
Do see some winners today in earnings also. 5FFIV is up here tremendously in earnings, up about 16.41%. They had both an EPS beat of about 14%, expected to come in around 335, came in at 384 a share, and their top line revenue up 7%, 766 million versus an estimate of 715. I'll try to get some information here more on any news out of the CEO or anything there on their reports. Did you see also today, Steve, Truth Social's parent company DGAT says they're going to launch financial services business there? Man, that worries me for the world of crypto a little bit.
I ain't scared. I mean, look, if you want to give your money to Donald Trump, you can do that several ways, and this will be a new way to do it. So go ahead. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Look, the world is a big place, and if they want to create banking, I can understand that. We're already seeing banking, and I love it. I love deregulation. So not in a way that's total deregulation. We don't want that to happen. That's just silliness. But I do see it in a way that helping others that are non-banked get banked. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, okay. Can't argue with that there. Trying to find the numbers here for F5. Not really much there, just, again, here we go. CEO says they're benefiting from its leadership in hybrid multi-cloud solutions. And Evercore analysts say that they're hiking their price target from 270 to 310 following the earnings report. So good news, and again, that's, I guess DeepSeek didn't kill everything, because that is, a definite play in AI.
Hey, we're hitting 1,400 views on Twitter here. You know what? If you're out there, hit the button.
Please hit the like, the share, the follow buttons if you could.
Let's go.
Really help
Let's get 2,000. Let's go beat everybody out there.
We want to get this out to everybody. We want to get the retail traders the same information that the experts have, and that's why we do this at Quasar Markets. Steve has 40 years of experience doing this, and he shares it with everybody every morning here. So please do us a favor, hit the likes, the share buttons, let your friends know.
All right, we're open here, Hondo, and it looks like a very muted morning here. Again, I like NVIDIA still here to the upside. There was some selling this morning in the early pre-market, but I don't care. I'm down to 133 now with mine, but I still think we go higher than that.
I agree. I'm still in my NVIDIA. I am a little lower than you in the 120 range there, but I am definitely interested still.
I'm seeing where Aaron Scherr is talking about the day-and-a-half rule, 100%. This is definitely one of those days where you'll see the day-and-a-half rule definitely on. For those of you who don't know what the day-and-a-half rule is whatever happens the first move of the Fed. So whatever they decide, and you see the first move of the market goes up, day and a half later, the market usually about 85% of the time goes down. So whatever the first move is, the opposite a day and a half later. Remember, the day is a half day, the next day is a full day, and then by Friday we'll know. So that's the day and a half rule if you hear me talk about it.
We do see on the Mag 7 a mixed bag here with Google, Amazon, and Netflix opening up, but opening up slightly green. On the red side, NVIDIA leading the downturn here, down about 2.5% here this morning. Apple down 1.5%. Microsoft down about 0.5%. Tesla down almost 1% here, and continuing to drop. And Meta sitting pretty much even for the day so far.
I mean, NVIDIA was on yesterday's morning was down, right? And we bought at 118.30, 32, and now it's at 126.11. So I'm okay with that. Could be some little bit of pullback here, but I think we go higher. I'm not worried about it.
I will say it's looking pretty solid so far on the Spider Index funds. We're seeing about half of them to the upside, half to the downside here. Biggest to the upside so far is consumer staples. And the communication sector, which is being led, like Steve said, by T-Mobile right now, which on that news of their partnership and continuing development of Starlink into their iPhones. So we are seeing that. Biggest loser so far is tech so far, even with the good earnings from ASML. I mean, I will say ASML did have the stocks booing very nicely this morning, but they've pulled back a little bit too. The stocks is up about 0.6 of a percentage point. And again, ASML, one of their biggest 3 or 4 companies there, had really good earnings earlier this morning overseas and had that moving. ASML is still up about 5% here in the U.S. trading hours. NVIDIA down about 2%. We do see most of the chips companies are up so far today. E-commerce actually looking pretty good so far today, led by sort of the big boys. Amazon up, Baba up, as you mentioned, Temu up. The ones that were up yesterday, though, getting hit. We keep seeing sort of these reversals. You got Shopify, eBay, both down today. We know we talked about them being up during the early trading hours yesterday. Target is continuing its move up, though. Yesterday it moved up a little bit. Today moving up again. It's had a nice run here since about the 16th of January.
Hearing reports that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman will reportedly plan to visit India next week. If you heard me talk about it, the dollar rupee is very, very, very high. I think India is a great place for them. Lots of people, and they are starting to come on the world scene. So I can totally understand why OpenAI is going to India. Seeing the tick now up 155 here, up 200 now. So I should see a little bit of a bump here in the markets here a little bit.
And we do see the early leaders so far today, and the S&P and the NASDAQ 100 F5 that we've talked about up now about 8%. T-Mobile up 6%. Starbucks up 5.5%. ASML up 5.5. We are seeing Corning, chemical company, up nicely here. They did have earnings also.
300. We could push here, Hondo. Here we could actually see some buying stepping in here a little bit.
Does seem like earnings are booming, the market so far this morning. Again, Corning, another one with good earnings here that is moving up nicely in pre-market. Same thing, Norfolk Southern, the freight company, train company, up here about 4.86% after their earnings reports. Seeing First Solar up about 4% here. That, solar has been under such stress here over the last few months, as we know. Green energy, less of a concern for our current administration than the last administration, but they are seeing a little pump here, up about 3.5%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching this market, and I'd rather take a pillow out and go to bed. It's like they're just waiting on the Fed. I mean, it's what does Powell say? And you know what? He's going to come out with a purple tie. We already know that, and we know he's not. He doesn't want to rock the boat, but I tell you right now, I expect Trump to be banging the table there as soon as he says no raise, hold rates. I think Trump will probably give a speech at some point today, and won't be happy about it.
Yeah, I will say Boeing with a nice little move up today, another 1.8% after moving up a little bit yesterday. They had made a big run up yesterday after poor earnings report. But has pulled back a little bit here. Does Boeing start to get interesting for you, Steve?
I mean, the backlog at Boeing is ridiculous. I think I said this the other day. I was on a United Airlines flight. It's Boeing Airlines, and it is falling apart. Right? I mean, the backlog at Boeing is very high. I think Boeing will do quite well over the next 5 years. Flights. I mean, what, we're going to stop flying now? No.
Right.
They still have their problems. I'm not going to say they don't have their problems. They have their problems. But they seem to be working through the problems, and I still like Boeing now. I like Boeing at 100. Boeing now at 179, 180 is starting to feel a little bit more frothy, but I think we go back to $300-400 a share.
Yeah, my thing is, it's got a nice little, inverse head and shoulders here.
Yeah.
I actually, for me, from, a technical analysis point, it did a good job of consolidating in that area before more bad news dropped it down. If we can see some consolidation in this zone between, 175 and 190, it starts to get it interesting for me.
Yeah.
So one I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. I'll be looking for sort of a similar move in time frame of here. So it gives me about a month or so to see if we consolidate there without any big movements. I would be looking maybe to start to get a position in Boeing at that point.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm looking right now at Ethereum here. Back above 3,000, 3,100 here. Gotta like Ethereum. That means that people are believing in Trump's, crypto world here. So,
most of the stuff he's doing is being done on either Ethereum or Solana. Those are the two that are definitely he's doing. Ethereum, we'll have to do a deeper dive one day on Ethereum because it's got some problems it needs to work out. There is some huge sort of fights at the top levels with Vitalik and the foundation and large holders who feel that maybe they are moving too slowly and not getting some stuff done that they need to do to compete, and that they could get passed by Solana.
Somebody just dumped a little bit of NVIDIA there. We're seeing some dumping here and all over in Bitcoin and in NVIDIA. Bank of England's Bailey now says banks say preferred minimum range of reserves of between 4 and 500 billion sterling, but the estimates can vary over time. I mean, that's not a lot of money to protect England. So, hey, England could have some problems there. The dollar sterling there.
Yeah, and their UK finance minister came out yesterday and pledged to accelerate economic growth, but we'll see what that actually means, as they've just continued to struggle. Seeing the Dow is the only thing up right now. SPY down 1/4 point, QQQ down 0.15, RUT's down, RUI's down. Bitcoin is slightly up, about 0.5 percentage point from where it was. Gold continues just to be stable, staying in that sort of 2760 zone. Hasn't really been able to move one way or the other out of there.
But if you want to talk about precious metals, you got to talk about silver. Silver back to 31 here almost.
But it can't break 31, Steve. You said it. Look
at that pop there in silver. I like that.
Right, it's moving up here today. And what my problem is every time it gets to 31, it gets knocked down. There is some huge seller there.
Bank of England's Governor Bailey now says interest rate risk should not be on Bank of England's balance sheet. Where should it be, sir?
Well, and that is different than what we saw come out of a few other countries where they talked about picking up bond buying that was needed there. Ron, you have a great weekend or a great day, sir. Cocoa continues to go up here, Steve, up another 1.74%, trying to get back up towards those highs we saw above, 12, almost up at 13,000. Apple down 1.2% today so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just sit still and we're sitting. I mean, Bitcoin's 102 again. It's just going to hold there, I think, and that's what we're going to be.
I will say DJT getting a little bit of a run here today, up 8.59% on that news. I tend to be a sell the news person when it comes to that stock. Let it play out a little bit here, but you probably want to look to short those. Any kind of pumps up, you can see what the reversals have been.
T-Mobile CEO now on CNBC talking about the deal with OpenAI.
Nice.
With
Starlink.
With Starlink, yeah.
MSTR has gone positive here this morning. NVIDIA continuing to drop 2.7 now, Steve. Back down.
I'm not scared. I think it happened yesterday too. The beginning of the day, it sold off, and then of course, the rest of the day it went right back on up. So I don't see that being much of a problem today.
Nice move up by Molson Coors. If I had to guess here, that move up is based upon the news that the Mexican president came out and said that they're not expecting those tariffs, as Molson Coors' number one beer is Modelo and Corona coming out of Mexico. So nice move up here today by Molson Coors.
Yeah, we're about to hit 2,000 views here, Howard. About to hit an all-time high for us.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And, folks, feel free to put into the comments any tickers you want us to take a look at, everything you want to see. Steve Flanagan telling us on the Sterling, look out below. Look out below. I'm with you there, my friend. As I said, they have done nothing to impress me over the last few months at all. They really had their moment. It looked like they were going to come out of Brexit and they were going to turn things around and make London back into a financial capital. And then they can't get out of their own way. It just seems to be the way lately. Mag 7, we now see 6 of the 7 on the negative side here. Netflix, the only one up. Hey, Steve, I did want to point out Fox. I guess TV's doing okay. At least the Super Bowl is. I don't know the TV is. So this could be an anomaly, you might think. But they sold all 59 of their ad spots, with 10 of them being sold for over $8 million each.
Right, but the Super Bowl only has so many ads, right? But I think you're going to see one thing that I've heard this a lot is we're starting to see Chiefs fatigue, right? That Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl. Eagles are in the Super Bowl. Boring, right? It might be an exciting game, but here we are again. And I think that there's a little bit of fatigue in the game a little bit. So I think viewership is going to be down. But congrats to Fox for selling those ads.
I see. The only thing that worries me there, where I will be the counter to your thing there, it's the Taylor Swift part. As I'm with you, real football people might be out of it, but she brings in such a world that's going to see what did she wear, who she's sitting in the box with, and all that stuff.
Well, you know what?
I'm with you as a Patriot fan who lived through Patriot fatigue and everybody else complaining for 20 years. I get it. I was rooting as hard as I could.
Hey, well, I'll just shake it off. No problem there. No problem.
Although, and I was rooting for your commies, man. I like the Redskins. I like the Redskins. I will not call them the Commodores. They will always.
We've now hit 2,600 views. I love it. Thank you so much. It means a lot to us as we build Quasar Markets Live and Quasar Markets itself. be sure to sign up for QuasarMarkets.com. We have an amazing platform. If you don't know who I am, I'm better known as BigBeat on Wall Street. I think my name's there somewhere. And I built platforms for other companies. And look, we're building one for us. We're building a community for you. We wanted to build a place where we could all be together, and we've got some really cool things coming this week. I know one of the things that we wanted to do is build a chat, and you'll be able to chat video inside of it. This week's coming on Thursday. It's already in like several languages. If you don't know, I've been all over the world. I just got back from Davos. I was in Tokyo. We're bringing this to foreign languages. You'll be able to communicate overseas with people and seeing data, getting a better feel for what's going on in the markets. And I'm really excited about what the future holds for Quasar Markets as we build out this next version of the platform. So thanks for being here. It's been a dream of mine to do this and to give back to the community. And I think this is what I've always wanted to do. And I really appreciate it. And all the views and all the people that are saying, hey to me, I appreciate it. Thank you. It means the world to me. So thank you. And I look forward to building something really cool for everybody here.
And what we strive to do, and what I'm excited about, is the educators that we're bringing to you. You're going to see a wide swath across all of the
4,000 views now. Kaboom! There we go. Here we go. I love it.
But we have folks from the Forex side, we have folks from the crypto side, we have options experts, we have people that specialize in just covered calls, we have people that do option volatility, we have momentum stock traders, AI stock traders, traded funders, all joining the platform to bring you guys the latest in information. Yeah. With that being said, today is Wednesday, so at 10 o'clock here, we're going to have Stephen Flanagan, Mr. Currency himself, in a 40-year veteran from JP Morgan, to talk about everything going on in the currency markets. The guy is amazing.
This is the guy who ran the desk for currency.
He ran their right. Automated, their algorithmic trading desk. The guy is amazing. Then we have, coming up at 12 o'clock, probably the top in her field, Agnieszka Wood, when it comes to mindset coach, the ability, if you're having trouble trading and you think that you might be your own obstacle, which is for a lot of us, we are our own obstacle. She tells you how to sort of get through those obstacles. She does a great job. I'll be back with her at 12, as we are every Monday and Wednesday. And then at 1 o'clock, we have the king himself, Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading Academy, live from the floor of the SIBO in Chicago. He has great sessions every day on everything you need to know about the world of options. We have all those today. We have Jeremy Vreeland and Matthew Tuttle on tomorrow. We have Jacob Wood, former White House member that's going to come to, former Trump White House member from the last administration. We'll have to get
Deputy Communications Director. I mean, the quality of our people here, this is not some mean place. We want to teach people, we want people to understand what we're building, and make you a better trader and make you more quality so you make more money. I think that's the key.
Yeah. And the top educators. I mean, yesterday we were on with Crypto Burb, who is going to be joining us in a big way at Quasar Markets. The top crypto influencer in all of Europe, almost 1 million followers, and a guy who is the only Polish CMT. So those that don't know, we are very tied in and love the folks.
And I sat next to him on stage in Davos, and we did a panel together. I mean, this is the quality that we're bringing here at Quasar, and I'm super
Tyler Woods and his folks at CMT.
Tyler Wood, who's on the board of Quasar Markets, by the way, Howard.
And Jay Wood, an educator now at Fordham, just added to his, portfolio of jobs. These folks are some of the top people in the business. And what you do is you get a little bit of insight from each of them. They all have different takes on things. And it's great. Let's get back into the markets here, Steve.
Yep. And now we're at 5,000 views. Thank you so much, everybody. We're hitting it now, hitting some strides now. Love this. I appreciate so much what you guys are doing out there for us as we build this. Look, it's been a year now, and it's built, and we're growing so fast. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Absolutely.
126 on NVIDIA. I said it. Don't be scared of NVIDIA. Don't let them talk you out of your positions.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Bank of Canada now says that potential output growth is expected to slow from 2.5% in 2024 to around 1.5%. Now, if that doesn't say cut rates, I don't know what it's going to say.
Right. Steve, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla, you said Tesla is going to be the winner. Do you have a loser out of that group? Does anybody underperform, report today?
No, because I think what we're seeing is tech, right? We're seeing the tech space kicking it up again. I think you saw a little bit of a tech wreck the other day because of DeepSeek. Honestly, I think that was the buying opportunity. I liked it. I do know that a few of the big names did not buy the dip. Fine. But I think there's so much money on the sidelines that buying the dip actually kicked right back in. And we saw that yesterday. If you were paying attention with me yesterday, we bought at 118.30 on 32 on Nvidia, and this is why I'm not concerned about the 126. I think we go back to 150. So look, no, I don't think so. And Microsoft wanted to partner with all these companies. No, I think that the companies are doing exactly what we said they were going to do, is mergers and acquisitions. And we've got finally an administration that's friendly to business and letting them do what they need to do to grow their businesses. So I'm okay with this. I like this a lot. And I think Microsoft, and I think you're going to see Meta. I think one of the things you saw with Facebook and Meta is that they're really pushing the VR and AR side of things. And by the way, if you don't know, Quasar Markets is already set for that. By the way, you can actually watch quasarmarkets.com inside of your VR. So take it for a test drive. I love it. I got my Apple Vision Pro next to me and my Oculus, and it works great. But that's what you're going to see, right? We're going to see those kind of things. So no, I don't think so. I think tech is still on the forefront here.
I agree, and I think today might be the day that you see earnings reports start to erase the news cycle. If Meta, Microsoft, Tesla all have good things to say in general, sort of alleviate the fears that this DeepSeek all of a sudden is ending the world of AI as we knew it, which none of us here.
Netanyahu's office just says that Israel has received a list of hostages to be released on Thursday from Gaza.
Awesome.
That's good news, right? We want to see that. We want to see these geopolitical issues go away. We want to see Ukraine and Russia kind of slow down. We want to see Taiwan and China, and then the markets could really explode. Right. I mean, that's kind of the stuff that we want to see. Right. So this is good for the markets. I like this.
Absolutely. Just so you know, Bank of Canada did cut rates here to 0.25 or cut it a quarter point to 3%. So they did cut it today.
Of course, they have to. I mean, and I think we should too. But we'll see if the pissing match happens between Trump and Powell. I'd like to see a purple tie, a little different today, maybe striped a little bit than the tie, but truth as a matter of fact is I think Trump's going to be talking a lot in the afternoon after Powell's conference, because I want to hear exactly what Powell says and exactly how he says it, and if he starts sweating like he did last time. Because he's nervous. He needs to cut rates, and he knows he needs to cut rates, but will they do it? I don't know. I don't think so.
What would be interesting to see is if Trump waits for Powell to actually finish his talk, or if he goes on at the same time. Now, I'm serious. That's something I'm going to be watching. Because I could see that. I could see him decide at around 2:30, hey, you know what, I'm going on.
Right. I mean, toilet tweets are going to happen.
I just love it because I love the way
7,000 views, folks. I mean, 7,000 views. Thank you so much. I'm really loving this. Things are really growing here. I'm loving this today. Thank you for support. Appreciate this. Look, here we go. I mean, we got 8 minutes going into the top of the hour. We do have some news here. We got some EIA numbers, oil numbers. We haven't really talked about oil too much. Trump saying drill, drill, baby, drill. But yet we're seeing light sweet crude at 73.43 a barrel. So I want to see oil back around 72, 71 a barrel, steadying it around the WTI West Texas Intermediate. If we see that, but right now, I don't know. It's like crude.
It's in no man's land. It's right where it paused here on the way up. It's also where it paused here on the way down. Yeah. It doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy feeling either way. I would need to see a breakout. Above 74 to think you could play it to the upside. Below 72, I like it to the downside. But in its zone right now, this is where you can see it's made most of its major decisions over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, oil is a tariff on us without even doing it, because that's oil prices go up. Oil is in everything from plastics to lipstick to gasoline itself, kerosene, jet fuel, everything that oil does. And that the price of oil goes up, that's a tariff on us as tax, right? So we want to see oil prices come down, and it also in a way that it helps other countries buy our oil so that we export too as well. Yeah.
Sort of weird question for you. 10 years dropping today, 30 years dropping today. Is that surprising to you in a day that the Fed's probably going to just stay neutral?
No, I think the bond market needs to steady out a bit. It's had a run, and without look, it's causing problems in the housing markets for sure. And as a 10-year goes up or interest rates go up, it's also causing havoc on the deficit, because we got to pay interest rates and go up, and costs us more money to borrow debt, and it's a mess all the way around. So we really want to see rates coming down. 126.30 now on there we go. Come on, Nvidia. As we talked about that this morning, don't get scared. Looks pretty good. 101,937 now on Bitcoin.
Yep. What I wanted, you brought up something we forgot to talk about a little bit earlier, was mortgage applications fell 2% again due to the high interest rates. That's got to turn around, right? This is
it doesn't have to turn around. Unfortunately, we wanted to. And Trump is right. We need to lower these rates so that people can buy homes again. That's the American dream, and people want to buy. I heard this. Was reading in the Financial Times about how Canadians are selling their homes in Florida, their second home, because they can't afford to pay the rates anymore, because they had to adjust the mortgage now. So 8,000 views now. Thank you so much.
That is amazing. Yeah. So to me, this is such a huge problem. The mortgages. We know this administration isn't going to put any pressure on private equity to stop getting involved in the housing market. So that's not going to ease that sort of, or add to demand to bring prices down. If we don't bring rates down, it's just, you don't see enough houses being sold and bought. It's a tough one, especially with everything going on, in the wildfires. They've been talking about how people are going to get paid out maybe 20% of what they need to rebuild.
That's terrible. I mean, the California wildfires are a disaster, and you're not talking about everybody now. That's Hollywood. You're talking about Malibu. It's a mess, and it's terrible. And our hearts go out to those that are affected by the fires, and we'll do everything we can here too as well to help. But the truth of the matter is that I think that we'll see the government step in and help. In some ways, I don't see that being an issue. Insurance can't cover everything, we know that, but the refis, the reinsurers, the Geicos of the world will come in and step in. The RIAs, they'll help as well, and I think the reinsurers are going to step in a little bit. So we'll see, but I think the government will step in.
We're seeing a little run here by Next Tracker after their earnings report here. Next Tracker, which is an electronic equipment and instrument company. They reported here a beat of, if this would click for me. Oh, that's because I have it on the wrong thing. Sorry. There we go. They had a $1.03 EPS. They were estimated to have 58 cents, and they came in with a revenue beat also of about 5%, 680 versus 646. Up about 23% here on a run. Trying to see if there was any. This is a company whose systems help optimize solar panels. And Guggenheim securities analysts have moved their price target from $50 to $62. So definitely seeing again, good forward-looking guidance is moving companies up. So, it isn't all doom and gloom out there.
No, I don't think so. I mean, doom and gloom is where I pound the desk and say, get the heck out of the market. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a little bit of excitement back in the market. I saw that in Davos. I saw that in Tokyo, that people feeling like business is moving again. Money's moving a little bit again. There's still a little bit of nervousness because there is some geopolitical issues, but I don't think that there's this big sell-off anymore. I think we saw a little bit in the tech space. Obviously numbers were getting out of whack. But I think buyers are right back in the market. There's so much money on the sideline that I don't see a big sell-off right now.
I'm with you. And you were calling for that sell-off. It did come. It came in about 2 waves, 3 waves. And you said that don't look that it necessarily would be over there in one. I will point out one that I've been beating up for a while, as you know, is Moderna. I just feel that they are not in the right spot in sort of their product mix. They just got a downgrade here. They are dropping down about 4.18% on that news. Goldman Sachs moved their price target down from 99 to 51. So getting hit here, they're just too reliant on the vaccines, and with our not. And I don't even put this.
Speaking of vaccines, I mean, I think you look at Novo Nordisk, NVO, and Eli Lilly, and the big ones, right? Because RFK Jr. is testifying for his Senate confirmation in roughly 2 minutes. So, we need to keep our eyes on those stocks because, quite frankly, they could go up and down based on what he says. Now, he has been anti-vax, he's been anti-everything, and now all of a sudden he's changing his tune and saying, I'm not anti-vax, I'm not anti-vaccine. I just don't think that everything should be there.
The right ones. Not everything and everybody needs it, seems to be his talk. And my thing was more, that's what I was saying, is I'm not, with Moderna, for me, it wasn't as much whether or not they, what happens. They're too reliant on those vaccines. They don't have what Eli Lilly has with the weight loss drugs, what Novo Nordisk has in the the cancer drugs and the Alzheimer's drugs. They don't have that wide swath. So they tend to be a one-trick pony, as I would call it. So I've been negative on it, and it is getting hit here a little bit today for sure.
Who we got coming on right after 10 o'clock here?
We have Stephen Flanagan coming in. I'm going to get all three of us. We haven't tried this yet. We might blow up the system here. Let me see if I can get us all on one screen in a way.
My goodness, Steve Flanagan, how are you?
Hey,
good morning, guys. And how was your trip, Steve?
I'm tired as can be, man. I tell you, traveling the world. I did something that I'd never done before, Steve. I literally went completely around the world. I flew over the North Pole because, obviously from Tokyo to Zurich, you can't fly across Russia. And for those of you who thinks the world's flat, I can promise you it is not flat. And it is cold. But look, the truth of the matter is, everywhere I went internationally, it all had the same feeling. You've been right, Steve. Look, there's a little bit of excitement, right? The dollar is still strong, but and I had a field day in Tokyo buying things. My wife got lots of fun toys and stuff, and myself. But you're right. I mean, the dollar is super strong, and there's got to be a ceiling at some point, right?
Steve, yes. Perhaps, but I come from an era where, look at the dollar index. The dollar index was 160 when I started trading in the market. So, yeah, I don't think it's come to that level, but I don't rule out a dollar index hitting, under this king dollar.
Okay, well, explain, Steve, to us, why was it at 160 back then?
Okay, so there was a lot of imbalances in the world, and there's no question. I do not think you're talking about the dollar Deutschmark at like 3.5, which would equate to a euro dollar today if you used it around 50 cents, if not lower. So, you had dollar yen in the 300s, big imbalances, all rectified between the Plaza Accord of 84 right through probably to the late 90s.
Right.
And what we had, 2000 through roughly 2015, 16 was this period of no movement, actually stretch it out to 2018. And that's just what the central banks wanted, because a stable currency market means that central bankers can now focus on their domestic economies and begin to look for. The problem is that I use that word laissez-faire. Everybody just kind of sat there and let it go. And then they suddenly saw inflation. Well, we can talk about why inflation came back, but clearly too much fiscal spending and too much central bank zero interest rate, quantitative easing throughout the world. I often try to find that figure, and I figure since 2008's Great Recession to 2022, you've got to figure close to $50 trillion was pumped in globally throughout the world. So inflation is a natural knee-jerk. Now, everybody's interest rates are going left and right.
Yep.
And
let's talk about I was going to ask you about that. So, it looks like Europe tomorrow. What are you thinking? Are they dropping?
Well, let's say this. Wake up, Fed. Let's start with one.
Agreed.
Sweden cut rates today to 2.25%. Canada cuts a quarter to 3%. China slipping into a deflation. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Germany in a recession. I agree with you.
And then you have Australia. Suddenly their CPI comes in lower, and the Treasury comes out. Jim Chalmers says the worst of inflation challenge appears to be behind us. Now, their rates are still 4.25%. They don't meet until February 18th. But my point here is, what is the Fed waiting for? The world is going this way on interest rates. The U.S. and the 10-year is obviously in the U.S. is beginning to reflect as they look around and say, rates can't be 5% in the 10-year. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So what am I looking for today? A dovish pause from the Fed.
Okay, so you're saying that the Fed holds steady, right?
Right.
We've been talking about this, Steve. Like for me, I have to ask the question: just how much does Powell sweat today when he talks? Because does Trump come out and start berating him right after it, during the meeting, during the conference? This is becoming a big stalemate here, I think, right?
I think it is, Steve. That's why my forecast would be a dovish pause, meaning they're not going to cut rates, or they're going to hold and wait for more data. I mean, data. Look at the durable goods number that just came out. Look at all the numbers coming out.
Trade imbalance numbers today, yeah.
So they're either, if they want to stay and start talking hawkish, well, let's come back to the dollar index. Get ready for a blast off, which I think we're going to see anyway, regardless of the Fed cuts. But the Fed will hold pause, but then they're going to talk about a dovish scenario, Steve. And I think that to deflect the criticism that we all know is going to come, they'll open the door to, the future rate cuts. And I don't think 2 is going to be enough. I actually think, 3.5% should be where the target is. So maybe 0.25% cuts all along here.
Okay.
And I think that feeds the economy and feeds this growth, because Trump is going to demand growth. That's what he wants.
Now, for those people out there, Steve, that doesn't understand the difference between hawkish and dovish speak, can you explain that to them?
Sure. A hawkish is that, we're concerned about inflation, and that the U.S. has got to keep a watchful eye on inflation coming back. It's stubborn. We're at a very difficult level. That's going to be called hawkish, where we begin to look for higher rates, or at least no cuts. The opposite side would be dovish, where we begin to say, we're going to hold rates today, but, looking out, looks like the economy could probably use it. He may even reference the international markets. And I expect ECB, watch this curveball coming in, Steve. You and I have been saying this, that Christine Lagarde is so far behind this curve here. She's a
when you say we're not behind the curve, it usually means you're behind the curve. I mean, Christine, right. I mean, what was she thinking? I mean, look, and you talk about it from that perspective, and being in Europe last week, I can tell you that a lot of people were talking about Mario Draghi too, in his letter, that he was also spanking them, saying, look, you guys, we got to get back together here. And we got to start. I mean, I think Mario Draghi even realized they made some mistakes, right?
To understand, Steve, to the viewers, Mario Draghi was the prime minister, the president of Italy.
Yep.
Then moved in to the ECB and ran the ECB. Christine Lagarde, Bank of France. Then she became the IMF director.
Right.
So what you have here is this hodgepodge of politicians. Mario Draghi obviously is not done and just threw his hat right back into the ring, because Italy is probably one of the more Trump-type populist movements within Europe. So you got to watch that, Steve. That's very careful. And I think Draghi, basically, my call, watch for the ECB tomorrow to zing us with a 0.5% cut.
Whoa. We need to put that out there. I think
I'm writing down the time right now. 1:08:05. You got it. That will be going right out.
And here's why, Steve. Before the ECB meets, you are going to have a slew of economic data. You're going to have January's consumer confidence expectations are around -14. You're going to have the fourth quarter GDP, and this is for the Eurozone. The fourth quarter GDP, they're expecting +0.1. I mean,
Yeah,
the patient has
good.
got a heartbeat, but is almost out. So, and then you've got the unemployment number for December to come out, expected around 6.3%. So, if the ECB wants to, quell all this growing dissent, they move quickly and jump at 0.5%.
Well, then if that's the case, then that proves that Christine Lagarde's wrong, and then she was behind the curve because they're having to, as I call it, swing the sledgehammer to get rates down again. Oh, that's crazy. And I asked the question on Twitter a few days back. Do you believe, and I'll ask you, Steve, do you believe that Germany is in recession?
Yeah, Steve, yes. For the past 2 years, maybe, or
2 years. Okay.
A good solid year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, what is the definition of a recession?
Yes.
2 quarters of minus growth, right?
Right.
Okay. So are we playing with the numbers? Could that be possible? Because
No.
we had a minus 0.1 and then a plus 0.1. So we really are not in a recession because it didn't meet the definition. That if we don't want to call it a recession, we can certainly say there's virtually no growth in Germany.
Right. No growth in Germany.
Without a doubt. We've been watching their manufacturing numbers for months here, and they've been dismal.
And, if we're going to talk about, Germany, let's remember, in the middle of February, third week of February, you've got a general election.
Yep.
And while you can paint, just like they tried to paint the U.S. election and say the ultra-right, a populist movement is the people's movement and usually takes a large swath of people from both the middle of the road left and the middle of the road right. And watching Germany, this AfD party is gaining a lot of ground, although they want to say that they're the ultra-right, which then highlights back to what is it about the Nazi equations? Everybody tries to draw these similarities back into the pre-World War II. I get it, but it doesn't. These things just don't.
It's a different world, and it's a different
world today.
Yeah.
What it is?
If you look at the AfD right now, you're looking at. The latest polls in Politico says around 20%, and the CDU, which is the Christian Democrat Union, if you don't know, that's the normal party that's usually in power, Scholz and all that. You're seeing definitely this AfD party, but I think it's being pushed along by Elon Musk, right? He keeps talking about AfD all the time on Twitter.
That's a subject we could probably talk long about, but the world that many of these people vision, like Elon Musk, is a world that is accessible to all.
Right.
And initially, I think that is an incredible thing, which feeds this populist movement. I don't want to get into longer range what this means, more control, digital currencies, etc., like that. But at least initially, these are very good things to allow people in a no-growth environment, and you could really say the Eurozone, the whole no-growth environment, let people start to breathe again.
Yeah, agreed.
I need to run,
Steve, I'll let you guys talk, but so much, man. Good to see you again, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Great to see you
tomorrow, Steve.
Good to have you back.
Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Currency, how are we doing, buddy?
Okay,
it's been a hectic day, man. Been a hectic day already. I want to go circle back to Germany a little bit there because I had a laugh. The line that I read was the German economy contracted 0.2% in 2024, following a 0.3% decline in 2023, though a technical recession has been avoided. How? Because you write it?
That's my point, Howard. They come on. These figures are fudged just so they don't have to admit it, so they can save face when they go before their parliaments. And the fact is that Europe needs growth, and the only way to get growth is stimulus. Either it comes in the form of fiscal stimulus, which they are restricted from doing.
Right, they don't have that.
For your viewers, when the euro dollar was formed for the EU and all the individual currencies were ended, that was in 1999. They were bound by a Maastricht Treaty, which basically said you're not allowed to run deficits of greater than 2 or 3%, I believe it was. So that means you're in handcuffs as far as fiscal spending. So if that's not going to stimulate, then what is? Monetary policy. But now you've got an ECB that is just refusing to acknowledge no growth. So something's got to give in Europe. Otherwise, and I still believe, I look at the euro dollar trading at around 103.90, and I think, you've got very good support at the lows of 102.20.
Yeah.
We talked about the resistance 105, 106. That's a great area to sell euro, I believe. But I'm looking for a push down to parity, and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast when this 102 breaks.
And yeah, I mean, and you can see that. I mean, you look at this move from 109 to 105, it was done 2 days. This stuff does not take long at all. And I bet if we break that down into the hourly chart, it probably happened all in about an hour.
Yeah, and the interesting thing on the euro, and gets into a long-winded, but I'll be real quick on it, and that is, if you look at a long-term chart, weekly, go back, as many years as you can. 1999 is when the euro dollar started. But if you look roughly around 102, 103 is a solid wall of support. And that is because these European quasi companies, meaning half government, like the government, like the electric companies, they're kind of run by the government, but they're private. I call them quasi-governmental agencies. They all come in and buy each other's debt, because that's the interesting thing about the euro, is that the euro dollar is made up of Spain's debt, Italy's debt, Greece's debt, right? So you can still buy the individual. So they all buy each other, which then puts a base of a floor under the euro. I'll equate this, if anybody wants to do a history lesson, to the cross ownership that happened in Japan in the 90s, and what led to the Nikkei dropping all the way down when the monetary authorities in Japan said, you've no more cross ownership. You can't say, I own 5% of your company, you own 5% of mine, and we never sell that. No,
Right.
that doesn't.
Yeah,
So,
it was just inflating prices, or limiting demand, limiting supply, excuse me.
Right. This time around, I think that the euro dollar has many structural differences that are not going to be able to be supported here.
I think you just hit on it. For me, the takeaway that I had there personally was, like you said, is, this has been the area where they buy each other's debt and they sort of salvage the ship. They don't have the ability to do it anymore because of the constraints on their GDP themselves. Everybody's at risk. There's no one that's sitting at 3%, 4%, 5% growth that says, okay, I can take one for the team. Italy's the closest, right? I'm Team Italy, like they did, and said, I'll buy Germany's Commerzbank. There isn't enough money right now, in my opinion, in those, countries, or leeway to make that work as a two-way street right now.
Underlining exactly what you're saying is bureaucracy. In the United States, for example, I could probably rattle off a dozen bank names that existed when I traded early in the 80s and the 90s. They're all gone. They're all one, right? Yep. Just look at my old place, JP Morgan. JP Morgan is
Chase,
made
Charlie,
up.
Fred, and Steve.
Manufacturers Hanover Trust, Chase Manhattan, right? Bank One, Morgan Guarantee. All these banks that just simply merged. More efficiency in less bank. If you look in Europe, they never made the changes.
It's so fractured. Yeah.
Right. Now you talk about the stimulus that we're talking about. Look at France. They just toppled the government because they couldn't get a budget through. And the government in there now is as fragile as can be. And that was what they call the right, Marie Le Pen's party, and the far left merged together to topple that government.
Yeah, they said the middle, you're screwing this up. You're not really the middle, and none of us are happy with you. We'd rather fight each other. We don't want to fight you also. Yeah, that was
not to get long-winded on the viewers here, but what does this say? When you trade currencies, you look at the macro. Okay, if I look at the macro, where do I have? I have $1 and I want to invest it in the world. Where am I looking? The US, obviously. And that supports just that flow of money into the US will support the dollar. Then I look at the rest of the world going, wow, you've got problems in Europe as we've outlined. You've got problems in the UK. China is looking like in a recession, if not moving into a deflation. India, the dollar is already soaring.
India can't buy any goods from us.
So, and this is underlying the dollar, the king dollar is by default here.
Yep.
And if today, I think the Fed would be very wise to do a dovish pause. Otherwise, the knee-jerk reaction in the markets is going to be a sharply higher dollar play. Right now, with the Dixie around 108.20, the dollar index, good support, as we said the other day, at 106.60, 107. I didn't realize it was going to bounce as sharply as it has.
It really did. I said to Steve, you called that one perfectly.
108.60 is your flash point. If that breaks on the top side, get ready for the surge up to 110.20, which has been the high. Beyond 110.20, I think that the ultimate call, which sometimes central banks have to be held to the fire, their knuckles in the fireplace, 115 will be the breaking point where everybody says, what is going on? We've got to do something here. Now,
well, I got to pull that whole chart down to get that one set in. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, you got to go way back.
I put in your lines always.
Now, interest rate differentials are the key in currency trading. We call them the tectonic plates underneath of the global financial markets. When these begin to shudder, things eventually happen.
They break.
For the viewers, one of the ones I put out there, dollar MEX, 20.88 is the top side break. 20.02 is the downside break. Why would I bring the dollar MEX into this world? Because at a 10% currency, the world has money parked in MEX. And in a world that we're talking about declining interest rates, everybody is parked money in the MEX. Right. If these levels break, you will see knee-jerk reactions throughout the global markets. It will naturally happen as money moves first. So those are the things I want to leave you with, and those are the levels that you should be watching.
Are you looking at anything with USD Canada after their rate changes today? It's got them moving up a little bit.
Headline inflation remains below 2%. Dollar Canada is, waiting for the hammer to hit. In other words, last I looked, it was around 144.45.
Right there.
Yeah. I think everybody expected the Bank of Canada to cut rates. They're now at 3%. Headline inflation is still low. They've made a series of cuts well ahead of the Fed, but they're still not getting the growth. Now, as our northern neighbor, I would expect some sort of knee-jerk reaction for their growth with rates this low. I think dollar CAD, a break of 144.95 is going to set up a play back to the March 2020 highs of 146.70. I do believe dollar CAD, if you look at that chart, straight line across the top, multiple tops.
It's got stopped. Yeah.
It's very easy to see where you're right and wrong. These are great currencies. I would play the upside break as a sharp move where everybody's going to have to scramble.
So you're looking for any continuation up here. Look at that. I even got a big arrow for you. We're fancy nowadays. We got it moving up.
And clearly we know where we're wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Either it's going to get rejected there. I get worried. I call this the Bart Simpson personally. You see it a lot in the world of Bitcoin over the years where we'd go and we battle that top. And what happens usually we come back down to his ears.
It's very possible. And, let me offer a 40-plus year experience in technical trading. I use that price congestion zone that you've highlighted right up here with all these multiple tops and bottoms. I use that as a price congestion. And how I define that is simple. Buyers and sellers. Every time it goes up, the buyers kind of win, but then the sellers come in and slam it back down and the buyers lose. And the sellers, but it doesn't break. The buyers come in. So it's a battle between the sellers and the buyers. And when one side breaks, the other side has to say, no mas, no mas. And they throw the towel in, and they've got to now get out of a position and get into the new move. And that's what, when these congestion zones break, look for the reactional. Other side loses, one wins, one loses, and you get these follow.
Eventually it breaks, right? So my other question I'd have for you is, do you ever, or, I'm assuming this is the case, but, what I see here is a divergence forming, right, between RSI and price action.
That's very true. And divergence on, is that stochastics, RSI?
RSI.
Divergence is a very important thing to factor into your technical analysis. Certainly, if the top side breaks and you're seeing divergence down below, it would make the move up even more powerful.
That's what I was just going to ask. Is that, that means this is going to explode, because if you get, if price action takes it, what's going to happen? Interest is going to follow. And when those folks come into the market here, they're going to bring that RSI up towards, this level here that we saw it max out at, towards that 80 zone. And what you see there is that explosive price action, that breakout move.
Precisely. And keep in mind, today, computerized trading dominates our marketplace.
And they follow that to the T.
Precisely. It's a simple mathematical equation that's put into a model, and they are selling dollar CAD, hence why it hasn't broken higher. They're all beginning to sell as there's divergence in the RSI, and we are multiple tops here. So it is a very good risk reward situation.
Asymmetrical. I love it.
They know exactly where they're wrong, and they know, what they're viewing is that the divergence will indicate a move back down. So this is a classical setup here.
Yeah, and what I want to point out is what we're saying here for some of our viewers that maybe are newer, is what's happening here is RSI is showing us that it's taking less and less of a push to make the move go up and to keep it where it's at. So what I am saying, and what Steve's sort of saying, is if price leads action here and we finally break down those buyers at that 144.90 area, what happens is all of a sudden RSI will pick up because people will follow, volume follows. And what happens there is when you get your explosive breakout. So we don't really get too far into the technicals with you sometimes. So I did want to bring that up to our viewers, because I was looking at that and saying, man, that is a bullish divergence. Like, you want to see in the crypto world. I assumed it moved over. I tend to know that all technical analysis moves over to every market, but I do want to get your take. 40 some odd years in this, Forex market. That's why I always ask you these questions.
I highlight this with a quick story. In around the 1984-5 area, I was in Singapore, and they had a huge corkboard in the back, and we had to do everything by point and figure charts, right? There was no automate. And we had the yardstick ruler measuring a long-term trend line, and we were all talking, wow, it's going to break higher here. And the boss walked by, stopped, looked at us, and the boss was probably 20 years senior to all of us young guys who were big on technical trading now. And he looked and said, that looks great. Yeah. Just remember one thing. Every ship at the bottom of the ocean has a chart room too.
It's true, and we've talked about that, and I've stressed it. I'm sure people on Quasar here are sick of hearing me say it, but right now, tweet analysis is just as important as technical analysis. Unfortunately, it's the way the market's moving. I do think that the AI trading is going to start to change that, because your retail traders will be using sort of the same algorithmic tools that the retailers that institutions using now, that will hopefully level that field a little bit. But it is. Yeah, I love that. I thought he was gonna come in and tell you just missed one part of the chart or something in there. Yeah, that's all great, but did you guys notice X over here? I've had a few of those days when I worked for Prospect Trading where I thought I had the better setup. I sent it through our internal Slack channel. What do you guys think? And the boss got proud, would come on and say, hey, did you look at the liquidity on that option chain? you're never going to sell it. You know, it's great. You can buy it at 2 cents and you think it's going to 12 cents, but no one's buying it at 12 cents when it gets there for you.
That's right. Yep.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us, sir. We will see you again on Friday. I'm going to let you have the last words on the way out here.
Well, money moves first, and that's my most important thing that I recommend to the viewers. Keep a currency on the top of your on your trading screen, and wake up, Fed. Let's see what happens today. I'll see you on Friday.
See you on Friday, my friend.